And if you thought the multi-trillion-dollar deficits that are going to hit all-time record highs, Trump is going to break the record again. He's going to have more debt than any other president in history. First term and then his second term. He's going to beat Obama. He's going to beat Biden. But the Democrat that follows Trump is going to beat Trump. That record will not stand. Trump will set it, and the next Democratic president will break it. But who knows where gold and silver are going to be by then, up in the stratosphere. People will look back at these low prices, $5,200 gold or, $85 silver, whatever, 82 now. These prices are going to look cheap when you have the Democrats controlling everything. We could be at $6,000 gold very quickly, and silver could be back above $100 an ounce very quickly. As oil prices are going to be over $100 a barrel. But the other thing that's going to be driving this, I forgot, on the cost of the war. Donald Trump has already made it clear. Not only are we going to pay for this war. I mentioned the defense stocks going up. Why are they going up? Because they're going to get a lot of orders. Because we're blowing up all the stuff that we bought from them in the past, and now we have to buy new stuff so we can blow that up. So the military-industrial complex is going to make a ton of money off of this war. They always do. And that means the U.S. government is going to be out a ton of money. We're going to have to pay for the war. Where are we going to get the money? Trump is not going to say, we got to raise taxes. We need a wartime tax to pay for the war. Of course not. They're just going to run bigger deficits. Where's the money going to come from? The Fed. Fed's going to crank up the presses. That's why wars are bullish for gold, because they're financed with inflation. Because the politicians don't want the public to have to pay for the war, then they really won't support it. They want them to think they get the war for free. But it's going to cause more inflation. But not only do we have to pay to destroy Iran, we now have to pay to rebuild it. Donald Trump has now committed that we're going to fight until we get unconditional surrender from Iran so that we can come in there and take over the country. And then we're going to rebuild it, make Iran great again. At one point it was great, I guess, a long time ago. But now we got to make Iran great again. What's that going to cost us? How much money are we going to spend building Iran? I guess we're going to build it better than it was. So how much is that going to cost? Where's that money going to come from? We're talking about hundreds of billions, probably in excess of $1 trillion to destroy and rebuild Iran. So this is very inflationary. So it's bullish for gold, it's bullish for silver, it is bearish for the dollar. But the other thing that's bearish is the economy. The economy was already weakening, and we got more data today to prove that. And this may be one of the reasons, again, for this war. I mentioned at the other podcast, kind of like Wag the Dog, that movie. But it's a distraction. It's an excuse. Trump knows that. He even thought that Obama might have used a war over Iran, started a war with Iran, because he was in trouble politically and he needed a distraction. He needed something. And obviously Trump needed something, not just because of the Epstein files, but the economy was weakening. He had a big loss in the Supreme Court with the tariffs. So everything was kind of falling apart. And this whole idea that we had this hot economy was about to blow up because the numbers don't bear it out. The economy was weakening. Inflation was strengthening before we launched a war against Iran. But now Donald Trump will be able to blame all this bad stuff that would have happened anyway. Yeah, now it's going to happen even worse, but it was going to happen and it was going to be bad. But now Trump can say, well, it's because of the war. Like everything was great, but unfortunately my back was to a wall because Iran was about to attack us. I had no choice. So we had to preempt, we had to go first. And now we're stuck in this war, this noble war that we have to fight. And so the cost of this freedom is going to be, well, we're going to have a recession. We're going to have some higher inflation, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. And then everything is going to be great, right? It's just another excuse that could be a scapegoat for problems. I think there's no question that the Democrats are going to take back the House but it looks now likely that they're going to take back the Senate. I don't know how, you unscramble this egg. I don't know, how Trump's going to get out of this unless he can get a quick victory, which, again, as an American, as a human being, I hope the war is over quickly. I hope we could win it, whatever the hell winning means. But history is not on our side for that. I just don't see any precedent in that. And, the government lies to us all the time. I'm sure they're lying to us about the war. Remember, they lied to get us into the Iraq war with the weapons of mass destruction. They lie about the economy. The government lies about everything. So why should they be honest about the war? They're not. I'm ssure we're getting misinformation there. I'm sure they're lying to us about why the war started, and they're going to be lying to us about how great it's going. Now, I don't know. I hope it is, but I just don't trust it. And so all of this, having the Democrats get back in is going to be bearish, especially if it lays the foundation for the Democrats to win in 2028, which is my forecast. My forecast is we get a Democratic president in 2028 with a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, the worst possible situation. And so if you thought the government was spending a lot of money when the Republicans controlled it, and you were right because they are, it's going to be even worse when the Democrats control it. And if you thought the multi-trillion-dollar deficits that are going to hit all-time record highs, Trump is going to break the record again. He's going to have more debt than any other president in history. First term and then his second term. He's going to beat Obama. He's going to beat Biden. But the Democrat that follows Trump is going to beat Trump. That record will not stand. Trump will set it, and the next Democratic president will break it. But who knows where gold and silver are going to be by then, up in the stratosphere. People will look back at these low prices, $5,200 gold or, $85 silver, whatever, 82 now. These prices are going to look cheap when you have the Democrats controlling everything. So I would just be loading up on it now. Unfortunately, you can hope for the best, but you better be prepared for the worst because our track record is pretty clear as to how this is likely to unfold. The silver closed up over $2 on the day and still ended the week above 84. Looks like about 84.33. So these are still good prices. They're much higher than we ended last year and way higher than we ended 2024. But they're down on the week. And even bigger losses in the mining stocks. The GDX and the GDXJ were both down over 11% on the week, including small losses today, even with the rise in gold and silver. So the question is, why? Right? Isn't war supposed to be good for gold and silver? Why didn't people buy gold and silver? After all, oil soared on the week, up about 35%. We closed around $91 a barrel. This is the biggest weekly gain in oil, I think, since the mid-1980s. And in fact, on the year now, oil is up 65% because we were already rising before the war. Now, some of that rise was probably in anticipation of the war. We were already building a war premium into the oil price before the war broke out. And that, I think, is the main reason that gold and silver sold off. I think it was a buy the rumor, sell the fact, because I think that there was some speculative buying in gold and silver in anticipation of a war with Iran. And the Trump administration had made it pretty clear that this was going to happen. We just didn't know exactly when. I mean, we knew it would happen over a weekend. We just didn't know which weekend. Trump likes to move when the markets are closed. But we had already moved a lot of our ships and personnel into the region. So it was pretty clear. And gold was going up. I mean, gold had, gotten pretty high at the end of last week. And so when the bombs started to fall on Saturday and gold initially opened for trading on Sunday night, it got near 5,500. That was around the high. But because gold couldn't really break to new highs, I think the people who had bought in anticipation of the war sold on the news. You know, you buy, what is it? Another expression, the trumpets, and you sell on the cannons or whatever. But we sold on the actual war. The traders took profits, and gold and silver went down. And of course, gold and silver stocks that may have also been bought for the same reason. People bought those stocks thinking, hey, if we have war with Iran, that's good for gold. I'm going to buy some gold mining stocks. And then when gold went down, when the war broke out, a lot of those traders sold their gold stocks, and that caused that big drop. And if you recall, this has been how the mining stocks have acted for the entire bull market, because the investors have got one foot out the door. They've always been skeptical of the rally. They think gold's going to collapse. So they overreact to every down move. And you can see that overreaction most profoundly in the gold and silver mining stocks. But I think this is a head fake week. I think that the war is going to be very good for gold and silver. And ultimately, the market is wrong not to recognize that now and buying these metals. But I think by next week, we should be, I think, off to the races. I think you're going to see a big recovery in the stocks. I mean, part of the reason, too, now is I think the world is overly optimistic, particularly Americans, on this war. I think people still think it's going to be short and sweet, you know, a quick, mission accomplished, and it's not going to be that disruptive. And in fact, maybe people are optimistic that we're going to have peace in the Middle East after this. We're going to have a friendly Iran. They're going to play nice. Everything's going to be kumbaya there in the Middle East finally. I think these are all fantasies. I have no reason to believe that the outcome this time is going to be any more successful than our other adventures into that region, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Afghanistan. I think it's going to be a mess. I don't think it's going to go as smoothly as people hope. I think it's going to be drawn out. I think, we're going to have a lot of problems. And I don't think what we're seeing in the oil market is just a temporary blip, which is another thing that people are hoping for. And so that's, I think, also tempering some of the enthusiasm for gold and the mining stocks, is that people are still too optimistic on the way this thing is going to play out.